Well, let me start with the time frame first. I spend a lot of time up front researching and organizing, probably at least a third or more of the total time it takes to write a book is me planning what I want to write and why I want to write it, who I'm writing it to, what are my themes, what is it that I really want, what's the premise that I really want. And then I'll create a research list. What are the types of topics I'll need to know more about to spur my imagination as to what kind of plot elements I could really build in there in a plausible way. And once I start getting the research, I start collecting it in massive amounts of spreadsheets and file folders. I might copy 10 articles on a topic into a Word document and then store that, rather than having 10 different links that I have to go back and refine, some of which may not be there when I need them. And so I'll start by basically creating what I call my material box. What are the things that I could use in basically supporting this premise with this kind of basic plot idea? And for me, there's usually typically more than one. Because I'll typically have a technology thread of what can go wrong here, a political thread of who's going wrong here, and what are the trends, and then some sort of religious or belief system that clashes with all of those things. And my characters are navigating that kind of a crucible. And so I'll collect a lot of information. And once I have that information and I've started and doing that initial research based on a basic premise, I learned so many things that it starts to then give me ideas for, okay, well, this has got to go into the plot, or this is going to affect this character. And then as I develop the characters, I always have my basic characters, but I'll have other characters that they're going to run into as they go to different locations. I'll say, well, I'll need a character in this location that knows this kind of knowledge. Right? So I'll need to fill in what kind of character sets do I need in order to basically bring those themes and bring those issues to bear. And then I'll outline. Because I write sophisticated things where I've got to lay the little foundation first before I get to the big reveal, where I've got to have people, well, you've got to make it go wrong now again. I found I spent years writing my first book and having to rewrite it so many times because it was complicated, but I didn't have all of it planned out in advance. And so as I learned more, I wound up saying, well, I've got to go back and just throw that piece away and redo it. I found that for me, I could move much faster if I just did a basic outline. And I'll start with what I used to call the basic film 3 arc. My Act 1 is going to basically set up my characters in the problem set. My Act 2 is going to make the problem set go to hell. And my Act 3 is going to be somehow resolving those things and getting the characters back to an equilibrium. And from that, once I have sort of the 3 acts across my characters and themes, then I'll actually go through and do chapter by chapter where I go, who's the POV characters in this chapter? What happens that relates to this overall arc? What are the themes that they're supporting? Is there any research or information that I need to make sure that's revealed in that particular chapter? And I almost never do it exactly as I plan it, but it shortens the time to write the book, the first draft, tremendously. I have a pretty strong first draft to start with. I'll probably spend about a third of the time on research, maybe 20% of the time on actually writing the first draft, and then the rest of it is polishing, tweaking, going back to research, saying, well, I put them in that situation in the old city Nicosia in Cyprus, but I better go back and get some more detailed maps and building locations and maybe see if I can get some video of the insides of the building so I can describe those specific buildings more in detail. And so I'll fill in more research details as I'm going through the additional drafts. And so probably 60, a little bit more than a third of the time I'll spend just editing, tweaking, readjusting, saying, well, I need to do this here before that, and and getting it to where it's kind of a finalized product.